History has a way of humbling humanity. Sometimes it arrives with warning, sometimes it doesn't. One day, the world felt ordinary. Children laughed on playgrounds, businesses opened their doors, families gathered around dinner tables, churches welcomed their communities, airplanes crossed the skies, stadiums echoed with thousands of voices. Life continued. Then everything changed. A virus spread across the globe. Hospitals filled, schools closed, businesses locked their doors, entire cities became quiet. Fear became part of everyday life. For millions, life would never be the same. Some lost mothers, some lost fathers, some lost grandparents, some lost lifelong friends. Healthcare workers carried burdens few of us will ever truly understand. Small business owners watched years of sacrifice disappear. Parents did everything they could to protect their children. Nobody had all the answers. Not then, perhaps not even now. When fear enters a society, questions soon follow. Who should we trust? Who should make decisions? How much authority should government possess during a national emergency? How do we protect public health while preserving the freedoms that define a free society? Those questions didn't disappear when the emergency ended. They remained, waiting. Years later, Congress began asking questions, not because every answer would change the past, but because understanding the past may help us prepare for the future. Former NIH Director Dr. Anthony Fauci appeared before a Senate hearing. Some senators thanked him for decades of public service. Others challenged decisions they believed deserved further explanation. For many of the substantive questions, Dr. Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right. The Fifth Amendment is one of the constitutional protections available to every American. Invoking it does not automatically establish guilt. That protection exists for all citizens. At the same time, many Americans were left asking questions they believed still deserved answers. Perhaps that's where our conversation begins. Not with conclusions, not with accusations, but with questions. Because questions have always been the beginning of understanding. Questions have shaped every generation. Not because questions always produce comfortable answers, but because they force us to think. COVID forced the world to make decisions at a pace few had ever experienced. Presidents made decisions. Governors made decisions. Public health officials made decisions. School boards made decisions. Business owners made decisions. Families made decisions. Some decisions saved lives. Some decisions remain debated. History will continue examining them all. But perhaps the bigger question isn't simply what decisions were made. Perhaps it's how those decisions should be examined after the emergency has passed. How much transparency should citizens expect from public officials whose decisions affected millions of lives? Should emergency powers have clearly defined limits? When scientific understanding changes, what responsibility do leaders have to explain why guidance changed? How do we protect public health without losing public trust? Can a nation protect both life and liberty at the same time, or must one always come at the expense of the other? These aren't easy questions. They weren't easy then. They aren't easy now, and perhaps they never will be. Years after the first lockdowns, Congress held hearings, not simply to revisit the past, but to ask whether lessons had truly been learned. Some questioned, received answers. Others did not. For many of the substantive questions, Dr. Anthony Fauci invoked his Fifth Amendment right. That constitutional protection belongs to every citizen. At the same time, many Americans continued asking questions they believed were still important, because when trust is shaken, questions naturally follow. Before we continue, I'd like to acknowledge two senators whose questions stood out to me: Senator Josh Hawley and Senator Bernie Moreno. Not because you have to agree with every position they hold, but because they were willing to ask difficult questions they believed the American people deserved answers to. One moment that stayed with me was hearing Senator Bernie Moreno explain that he left private business, entered public service, and ran for the United States Senate because he believed something he witnessed during the pandemic demanded action. Whether you agree with him or disagree completely, that isn't really the point. The point is, he believed something mattered enough to change the direction of his life. That made me stop and ask myself, what do I stand for? Because every generation needs people willing to stand for something they believe can make their community, their state, or their country better. Maybe that's one lesson all of us can reflect on. History as a way of asking questions long after the headlines disappear. Years from now, children will learn about the pandemic. They'll read about the virus, the hospitals, the shutdowns, the scientific discoveries, the economic impact, but perhaps they'll ask us something much simpler. What did you learn? Did we become more prepared? Did we become more united? Did we become more transparent? Or did we simply move on? Because one day there will be another emergency. It may not be a virus, it may be something completely different, but another moment will arrive when fear, uncertainty, and leadership meet again. When that day comes, what lessons will we carry forward? Will we ask difficult questions with respect? Will we protect both public health and the liberties that define a free society? Will we demand accountability while remaining fair? Will we remember that behind every policy, every statistic, and every headline, there are human beings? Perhaps those are the questions history will ask, and perhaps those are the questions we should begin asking today, because democracy isn't strengthened by people who never ask questions, nor is it strengthened by people who refuse to listen. It is strengthened when citizens are willing to think, to learn, to challenge, to reflect, and to remain open to evidence even when it's uncomfortable. So, before this video ends, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Not about politics, not about personalities, not even about COVID. About you. What do you stand for? What principles would you defend, even when doing so is unpopular? What kind of example are you leaving for your children, your family, your community? History isn't written only by presidents, scientists, or senators. History is also written by ordinary people who choose to become extraordinary through courage, character, and conviction. Maybe that's the lesson, not that we all agree, but that we never stop learning, never stop asking, never stop thinking, because the strongest societies are not built by blind agreement. They are built by informed citizens who have the courage to ask difficult questions and the wisdom to seek honest answers. The question isn't whether you agree with me. The question is, what will you do with the questions now in front of you? Because the future has a way of becoming history, and history has a way of remembering those who stood for something. Until next time, keep asking, keep learning, and above all, ignite your intellect.